Let's Science is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
3, 2, 1.
We live in a universe of scientific wonders.
Every day, scientists are inching towards breakthroughs which can change our lives.
We're playing our small part in sharing these wonders with you.
That's why today is a fine day for science.
So let's science.
So this one is based on an article from space.com, and it was from the 20th of April this year. And the title is Japanese Satellite Will Beam Solar Power to Earth in 2025. So the plan is essentially, before I get into the details, the plan is for Japan to launch a satellite that has a solar panel and collect some power and then send that power to Earth from orbit.
Wow.
Essentially. So as like a proof of concept. So there are sci-fi shows that have talked about this.
I was about to say, isn't it? Yeah, which one? I can't remember which one's Lindsay.
I remember that good old one, The Expanse. Where
yes.
So there was they had a big agricultural center on Ganymede. And,
yes.
And they had these giant orbital mirrors that would reflect sunlight and power and whatever else to power the station or whatever.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So could there be a viable way for us to harness the power of the sun from orbit and send it to Earth? So sci-fi has had a go at this. In previous decades, I've heard this spoken about, and it's not viable at the time because the technology wasn't there where it would be possible.
That sort of makes sense. That's with everything in a sense. You have to wait for technology and tests and experiments to work out. That's
technology has to catch up, right? So anyway, these Japanese scientists now, they believe that technology is getting there to the point where this might be viable. So it says here that Japan is on track to beam solar power from space to Earth next year, so in 2025. And this is 2 years after a similar feat was achieved by US engineers. So this isn't the first group that's done it, but now they want to do it, their way, which is good. This is an important step towards a possible space-based solar power station. That's what they're aiming for eventually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the International Conference on Energy from Space, so they had a conference about this, so they must be taking it quite seriously.
Oh, yeah. If you have a conference like this, yeah.
Yeah. Koichi Ijichi, who's one of the scientists and researchers from Japan, it says here that So the Japanese Institute's Japan Space System, is from an advisor from there. He outlined Japan's roadmap towards an orbital demonstration of a miniature space-based solar power plant. Try and say that 10 times fast. That will wirelessly transmit energy from low Earth orbit to Earth. So he said it'll be a small satellite, about 180 kilograms, and it will transmit 1 kilowatt of power from the altitude of 400 kilometers. Now, 400 kilometers is quite, it's low Earth orbit, but it's quite high.
It is quite high, but it's still,
Yeah. The Kármán line, which is considered to be the internationally recognized where space begins, is 100 kilometers. So this is 300 k's further above that.
Okay.
So that's what he says they're planning to do. Now, the article says, as a fun fact, 1 kilowatt, which is what the solar panel will generate, is about the amount of power needed to run a household appliance, such as a small dishwasher, for about an hour, depending on its size. So this is not a full scale, you could run a house or a city or, or a suburb. It's like a proof of concept, right?
Exactly. Like you were saying, like baby steps. Step by step.
Exactly.
Yeah, just don't try to pull all your... This is a bad analogy. Put all your eggs in one basket.
That's right. But, don't try and go for the big kahuna until
don't go full on. Let's try to get some solar power into this earth. Let's try that.
That's it.
Just settle down.
Science, science is incremental, right? They try on a small scale. They collect data. They scale it up a little bit more.
Yes.
Using the previous data, you're less likely to fail if you've collected data from small incremental steps. Whereas if you try to do the whole thing, theoretically, you might get it right, but there's a very good chance you'll get it wrong as well.
Very good chance, exactly. And also, it's the expense.
And you waste a lot of money failing. That's right, exactly.
Try to, I think we were talking about it before, way back. You start small, invest and try small. Correct. And that's why we got our space shuttles doing all these tests. Yes, it is expensive, but they are doing these for a reason, to make sure
Yes.
that we are able to go out to space. And this is the same thing. And I'm really interested in this solar thing. This is going to be great because we so need a different kind of energy at the moment, because I think coal's going to be gone.
We can't rely on fossil fuels forever. Exactly.
That's correct. Sorry, Lindsay. Yeah, that's what I was trying to find. Fossil fuels. Yeah. We'll still have gas as a backup. Gas is a fossil fuel? Oh,
well, gas is a fossil fuel. Yeah, natural gas.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, as well as petroleum and oil.
And oil and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like I said, baby steps, and this with solar. Whew. And it's going to be good.
And this is really, so it talks about in the article, one of the motivations is to go carbon neutral, all right, or to create energy that doesn't have a cost in terms of pollution, for example, carbon pollution.
No.
Mining gives us the materials we need and whatever, but the thing is, there's also a big cost to the environment, so they've got to be very careful about all of that. If you do too much damage to the earth, then the human race suffers as well as everything else. So there's a lot of considerations, right? So this spacecraft will be 2 meters square, and it will have an onboard photovoltaic panel or a solar panel and a battery, which it will charge, right? So it'll collect the energy, which will be stored in a battery. And this energy will then be transformed into microwaves. Now, just so everyone's clear, I'm not
about to say
the thing in the kitchen that you used to make popcorn, right? You don't know it's in frosting, so, as in microwaves, as in the electromagnetic wave of energy. So, using microwave signals, it will beam it towards antenna on Earth. However, the spacecraft, to stay in orbit, you have to travel very fast, or the Earth's gravity will pull you in, right? So
but 2 meters. Did you say this is 2 meters? That's small, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very small, And it will need to travel at 28,000 kilometers per hour.
Goodness me, that little thing's going like that fast. Woo!
Yeah, so that's like Melbourne to Sydney in 5 seconds.
Yeah, no. I can't wait for the transport to be that fast. We have to wait for that.
Yeah, need inertial dampers for that too. But that's another problem, otherwise you get splattered against the wall. But
True.
Anyway, so in order to collect the energy then, there would have to be several antenna, and they would need to be spread over a distance of about 40 kilometers, spaced 5 kilometers apart, so that the energy can be transmitted. So, Ichichi says the transmission will only take a few minutes. And he said once the battery is empty, it'll take several days to recharge.
That sort of makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
So this is proof of concept to see. America has already done it. Now Japan is trying to do it a different way. So they're trying to get that done. So the mission is part of a larger project called Ohisama, which is Japanese for sun. And it will launch in 2025. So that'll be an interesting one for us to look for. The researchers have demonstrated wireless transmission of solar power on the ground from a stationary source. So they've tried it on Earth. And they're also going to have a go at doing it in December with an aircraft, just to, again, proof of concept. So the aircraft will have a similar panel. It'll beam the power from a distance of 5 to 7 kilometers. So they're going to try and do a similar thing, but just from an aircraft as well.
All right. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So the question is how viable is this? Could this become a future technology to power things around the Earth? So the space-based solar power generation was first described in 1968 by former engineer Peter Glaser. Yeah, Peter Glaser, I should say. However, people have considered it science fiction, which, as we've seen in lots of science fiction TV shows, as we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the theory...
So theoretically, it's doable. It can be done. Yeah. But in the past, it was considered impractical and too costly because it would require enormous structures to be assembled.
Yes, makes sense.
You need to create a giant power plant, essentially, power collecting plant in space, and it would have to be assembled in orbit. So it's about a very complex kind of thing that needs to be done.
It's bad to say, wow.
Yeah, but the experts at the conference that we were talking about said the situation has changed because of technological advances. And also they say because of the urgency to decarbonize the world's power supply and thwart climate change. So they're saying technology plus urgency has made the possibility of this more feasible in the future. Now, we're not going to be seeing these powering homes in the next 2 or 3 years or anything like that.
No,
but they believe that the steps are becoming possible. Now, it does require, it still relies on a lot of things to go, and I'll talk about that soon. So there are lots of challenges they have to surmount before they could say, hey, we've got space power now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But what they're saying is the advantage is if this could be found to work, what you would end up having is a constant power source, because as we know, solar panels on Earth don't work at nighttime because there's no sun at night. That makes sense, right?
Yes, yes.
Wind-based energy, wind turbines are important and they do a good job, but you need wind for that to happen. So so you need the weather to be, for example, that's why we have like lots of coastal wind turbines, because coasts tend to be windy.
Yes.
Whereas
yes.
I'm looking at my window right now and it's perfectly still. So those technologies on their own are not going to be able to create this infinite renewable power.
Exactly.
So they see that this space-based power, while it is not the only thing that's going to help the world to become carbon neutral, it'll become what they're hoping to be a pivotal piece of the puzzle of a whole range of different ways of collecting energy renewably, so that we have this renewable power supply. So there are some puzzle pieces that are still missing, according to the article, that would in order to create a seamless carbon neutral power supply by the middle of this century. And this is what the international climate change agreements have, what they've decided upon. So to meet this goal, they're trying different technologies, and there are a few puzzle pieces that this technology still hasn't addressed yet, which is fair enough, because we're still in proof of concept stage here. So what they're saying is developments in robotic technologies, improvements in the efficiency of wireless power transmission, and most importantly, the arrival of SpaceX's giant rocket Starship, it says here, could allow space-based solar power to become a reality. And this is what the experts are saying at the conference. So you need robotics to efficiently create these things and mass produce, etc., things like that. Wireless power transmission needs to be continuously perfected, as they're saying it is, because you don't want transmission loss or loss of power through the transmission. You want it to be, you don't want to have, like, if you gather a battery's worth of power, you don't want only 70% of that power to be transmitted to Earth. You want all of it, 90+%. So they're saying that those technologies are there. And SpaceX, as we have all been excited about, is developing the Starship, which a lot of us have been watching the launches, and it is getting better and closer to becoming a viable rocket.
That's great. Yep.
So, and the important thing with Starship is that it has a much, much bigger payload. That is the amount of tons it can take to orbit it dwarfs anything that exists right now.
Wow.
So instead of taking 30, 40, 50 of these satellites to space, we could be seeing 100, 150 satellites, which is way more efficient. So
True.
So going on about this concept, it says last year a satellite built by Caltech engineers as part of the Space Solar Power Demonstrator mission beamed solar power from space for the first time. This is the American mission that we talked about. The mission, which concluded in January, was celebrated as a milestone. So there are more demonstrations of this by other space agencies and groups in the pipeline. Others are going to try this as well. So clearly there's some momentum to try and make this work. The European Space Agency, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, or DARPA, they're trying it as well. Commercial companies and startups are also developing concepts, and they all are relying on Starship and advanced space robotics to be able to do this as well. So they're all looking at these future technologies to be able to contribute to renewable power. However, all right, it sounds great, but we have to be realistic as well. There is a big challenge to overcome. It says not everyone is enthusiastic about space-based solar power. So, for example, NASA released a report questioning the feasibility of the technology. So we can all get excited, but you've got to look at the reality as well about how feasible this is. So they've laid out some difficulties. For example, one difficulty is the amount of energy required to build, launch, and assemble an orbital power station. The energy they produce would be too expensive. So they're saying that it could cost 61 cents per kilowatt hour. Now it's a lot, all right? Compared with as little as 5 cents per kilowatt hour for an earth-based solar wind energy. So 5 cents for a kilowatt hour compared to 61 cents, that's a massive cost difference, right? So that's based on some of the estimations they've done. So is it worth launching all this to have expensive space power? You know what I mean? So yeah, that doesn't mean don't do it, but this does have to be taken into consideration.
Yeah,
what's the application
for
this? Where is it going to help? What gap is it going to fill? Also, the carbon footprint of power production and the amount of greenhouse gases generated by rockets is another thing to think about too, because it says here, for example, a gigawatt-scale spaceborne solar power station, such as, and I'll talk about this in a minute, the Cassiopeia concept plant proposed by a UK firm, would need 68 starships to get it to space.
Wow.
So
that is a lot of... Wow.
Yeah, 68 rocket launches. And we're talking about what is the largest rocket, most powerful rocket known to humankind. It's more powerful than the Apollo, the Saturn V rocket. So 68 launches to get one plant. So we're talking about a lot of carbon emissions, etc.
Carbon emissions,
for all these launches.
That was true.
Yep.
Wow. You can
So
put in that concept.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Cassiopeia array, by the way, that I just mentioned there, it's the constant aperture solid state integrated orbital phased array. And
Goodness me.
so they say that this could generate a big base load of power. It's renewable energy. I'm looking at the spin here that's for this company, because Cassiopeia, this isn't related to the Japanese concept that we're talking about. Cassiopeia, this is a UK project, but this is a serious proposal for a space-based solar power plant. So not a satellite, but a power,
a power plant in the space.
Yeah, in space.
Wow, that is like another huge step.
That's a whole other thing, isn't it?
That's a whole different ball game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Whew.
So anyway, any thoughts on that? It's pretty cool, isn't it?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like you were saying before, let's start small. Bring these little solar panels to space, like the 2 meter by 2 meters. 2 meters? Yeah, 2 meters by 2 meter ones. And try it out for 1 kilowatt. Test it. See it runs. Okay, so it runs. Give it, like everything we test, give it maybe a year or half a year. Don't rush it. Don't think people go, oh, no, it's working. Oh, and all the media and all the people talking, oh, we got solar from space now. Then what can you do? Can you do a bit more? And let's invest more into it. That's part of the business.
Yeah.
Sadly, they're trying to find a business in it.
There has to be a viable business case for it as well.
Exactly. Yeah, like we'll talk about if we talk about funds and money and all that, then maybe make more panels, bring them out. And look, these guys know what to do. The thing about having a power plant in space, wow, I'm sorry, that's going to happen in around 50 years or even 100 years from now. That's going to be huge. Wow. It really reminds me of Expanse.
Yeah, doesn't it? Yeah, it's got that,
So the TV show, people. Sorry, it's the Expanse TV show, not the Expanse. The space is
the vastness of space. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking as well that in terms of application, so Starlink at the moment is a space-based internet provider. So that there's hundreds of Starlink satellites, maybe thousands now, I think, and they orbit the Earth. And for most countries, they provide constant internet, reliable, super fast internet. And and now it's expensive, by the way, so the costs, they haven't got the cost down yet. But what it does mean is that if you're in a rural area, for example, you have access to the internet, and that's really helpful. And I'm wondering if maybe to start with a space-based solar power plant, whatever it might be, the first application is providing energy to places where it's very difficult to get energy to. So rural areas, places where power infrastructure is not quite there yet.
Exactly,
So that might be the first application, right?
True. That is true.
And with everything, economies of scale, once it scales up enough, it gets cheaper and cheaper over time.
True.
But there are big hurdles to overcome before they get to that point.
Yeah, they'll work through them, work out all the increases and things going on. Oh, wow. That'll be great having solar panels.
Yeah.
Solar panels, but solar from the space. Even though we still can do it from Earth, but Earth is huge. We can't really put solar panels everywhere we want to.
We should just do it because it's cool. It's cool.
True. That is true. That is true. But
from a nerdy space science perspective, it's so cool. Let's do it.
Beautiful.
Let's Science is brought to you by StarQuest Media and is a fortnightly podcast that brings you the scientific wonders of our universe from a distinctly Catholic point of view. For more from Caroline, Lindsay, and friends, listen to the StarQuest show, Catholics of Oz. Find links from today's show at sqpn.com/science and find the Catholics of Oz at sqpn.com/Oz. Be sure to follow the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you can find podcasts, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. The generous donations of our patrons at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Let's Science and all the shows at StarQuest which makes our nonprofit mission possible. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Join us next time for more scientific wonders, and thank you for listening to Let's Science on StarQuest. Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy, The Secrets of Sacred Art. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at starquest.fm/art.